So I've done 4 professional qualifications. I did my chartered accountancy and company secretaryship. That was done from ICAI and ICSI in India.
It's very evident that you really liked upgrading yourself.
I'm using all my 4 qualifications to
Correct.
give a holistic advice to our clients. That's where I think it's not just about getting a degree, it was about the purpose I'm going to, serve
Correct,
with that
yeah.
qualification.
Hello everyone and welcome to Coffee with CA, the global chapter, with me, your host Jeena Barwani. Today on this episode, we have UAE's thought leader, CA Mayank Sawhney, a chartered accountant with over 25 plus years of experience. He's a co-member of ICAI UAE's tax committee and has also been featured in articles at Gulf News, Khaleej Times, and Bloomberg. So let's get started as we understand his area of expertise in tax advisory and corporate finance advisory. Hello, Mayank. Thank you so much for being over here. We're really happy to have you over here.
It's my pleasure, Jenna, to be with you here.
Yeah. So I'm going to take you back, way back, as to why you chose to become a CA.
I think I came from a business family.
Okay.
And I learned the basis of business and finance and accounting from my father's business as a child,
Okay.
and I knew that I want to contribute to the business community.
Uh-huh.
It was not decided that I will become a CA, but then as I went to commerce in my schooling in grade 11 and 12, it started becoming clearer this is what I want to do. I
Okay.
believe that I can make difference to multiple businesses by being a professional chartered accountant, using my business acumen and my control over the numbers.
Okay.
That's what was the driving force to get me to become a CA.
That's nice. So along with being a CA, you're also you have multiple degrees. If you could list them down.
Sure. So I've done 4 professional qualifications. I did my chartered accountancy and company secretaryship. That was done from ICAI and ICSI in India. Then while I was working, I worked majority of my career with big 4 firms like PwC, Ernst & Young, also worked with His Highness Crown Prince of Dubai and Government of Dubai.
Yeah.
So during my working tenure, I wanted to keep on, enhancing my knowledge depending on the area I was specializing in. So
Okay.
one of the area I was doing is corporate finance advisory and investment advisory. So I felt CFA from US will add additional qualifications. So that was
So
the
you
third
did that
qualification did. And as I was always passionate about tax, as being a chartered accountant, not knowing tax is. So I did a specialization called the DART, Certified Tax Professional.
Okay.
The DART is the tax assessment and diagnostic assessment arm of IMF based in
Okay.
US. It's a by invitation course where they handpick you and ask you to do that certification course. I did that to enhance my skill in tax compliance. So currently as a consultant to my clients, I do cover primarily the tax and compliance services as well as corporate finance and investment advisory.
Correct.
And I believe the combination of the qualifications which I have, along with advising them on the legal and compliance matter where my company secretaryship qualification comes in, advising them on financial advice through my chartered accountancy, investment advice through CFA, and tax advice through TADAT. So I'm using all my 4 qualifications
Correct.
to give a holistic advice to our clients. That's where I think it's not just about getting a degree, it was about the purpose I'm going to serve
Correct,
with that
yeah.
qualification.
So it's very evident that you really liked upgrading yourself, right? So why exactly did you move from India to UAE and how did that journey occur?
I mean, I moved to UAE. I worked in India, I did my internship in India, my
Yeah.
CA articleship. I did work for a few years
Correct.
with PricewaterhouseCoopers as
Yeah.
well. While I was with PwC, EY offered me an opportunity.
Okay.
And UAE was a very growing or a nascent market at that point of time.
Okay.
So it presented a different opportunity. You are in the market when the growth has really started out,
Yeah.
So I moved here in UAE in 2005. I've been here for 20 years now.
Yeah.
So the 2005 was almost the beginning of the UAE growth story. The real
Correct,
estate
yeah.
boom had started taking shape. So being a part of a place which is growing and growing in the journey along with that, I've lived that journey being here in UAE, and
Yeah.
UAE has become a second home. initially it was, to explore how the things go out. It was never intended that I will be here for 20 years.
Okay.
Initially thought I'll go there, try it for 2-3 years, and get a different international exposure and maybe move back to India. But once you moved here, the things worked out pretty well. I love the place. I love the vibe the city offers, the safety the city offers. And like many others, I decided to make UAE as my home, and Dubai is my home for last 20 years.
That's nice. So you meant, while you were talking right now, you mentioned that you're also an advisor to His Highness. How did that happen?
So I used to work, while I was with Ernst & Young. So His Highness Crown Prince of Dubai was one of our key accounts as a client.
Correct.
So then I worked, they asked me to move in-house as, part of the investment team.
Okay.
So I took that option to move in-house and work. The idea was to basically, it was more like a family-owned business, and to give it a corporate structure and, consolidate everything. So I took it as a challenge, and contributed to that. But my calling was always consulting. So once I did that project and, everything was streamlined. And as the tax law started getting introduced into UAE, and I was very passionate about taxation right from the beginning, used to work on international tax structuring for majority of my career. But once the UAE local laws, the VAT, the excise tax, and then subsequently the corporate tax has been introduced, I thought this is where my real calling lies. I can make a difference to much more, number of people. And that's why I decided to, continue my journey as consultant after that stint with His Highness, and that was a very interesting, work which I did over there. But as in a career, I believe you should always, follow what your true calling is. So my true calling is still consultant, and I like to make a difference to as many businesses I could do.
That's nice. So I think that's one experience of yours which will always be there for memories, right? So you're also part of ICAI's tax planning committee in UAE. How is that functioning?
So basically, we have a core committee, which is where we, as a group of tax leaders, right from the time the VAT was introduced, we took it upon, under the ICAI regional office, which is based in Dubai, in Knowledge Village. We took it upon ourselves to basically make sure that we, amongst the chartered accountants, we actually educate them. Tax was a very new thing. A number of chartered accountants have been working here and were away from taxation, like since they left their home countries, there were no taxation here. So they were away from it. So we thought, through a properly designed certification courses, initially for the VAT, then for the corporate tax, we could actually, empower skill sets of our fellow chartered accountants. So a few of our leaders, we formed a kind of a core committee under ICAI regional office. And right from 2017 onwards, we have, run maybe close to 40 odd certification course batches for the VAT and corporate tax. And I have been part of majority of them. I'll start the inauguration course for all the batches and also do other lectures. That's my way of giving back to my profession. So that's what we try to make sure our fellow chartered accountants are also empowered. And they are, even whether they're working for industry or they're in practice, if you are a chartered accountant or a finance professional, tax is if you don't know taxation, you're of no value. So that is something which we took it it's more like a voluntary or honorary objective, which we took in, try to empower our fellow chartered accountants. And I love that part of it, on giving back to the profession as much as I can.
So with VAT and corporate tax that's come into the picture, and soon e-invoicing that's also coming into the picture, what are your thoughts and take on where the landscape of UAE is going with these changes in taxation?
See, again, as any economy, right, once they're moving from a completely unregulated economy, which a UAE was to a great extent prior to 2018, ultimately, UAE relied on a number of other sources of revenue without levying a tax burden on the residents. But over a period of time, a country to continue its growth, and we have seen the infrastructure which UAE has, it needs some support from residents and for us to enjoy the infrastructure and the businesses to prosper. So slowly and gradually, they're coming from a totally unregulated economy to a regulated economy. It started with the VAT and excise tax, followed by corporate tax, Few years down the line, we may have personal income tax.
Okay.
And within the space of VAT, for example, once they identified certain challenges, they had to come up with newer regulations such as e-invoicing. Now, the major challenge why e-invoicing had to be brought in was there was a mismatch between companies issuing invoices with VAT, but not actually paying VAT to the Federal Tax Authority. And the recipient is claiming the input VAT. Now, recipient is a bona fide recipient of those tax invoices. They have every right to claim input VAT. But how can the tax authority give that input credit or a refund to the recipient if the one who has issued a tax invoice has not paid that? Now, to avoid this problem, because people did not use the self-compliance which they had given, they are going to roll out from the second half of 2026, the e-invoicing, which has already been rolled out in Saudi Arabia. So these are just, basically within the whole spectrum of the, to make your tax system more efficient.
And more transparent.
To be. Businesses will take time to adapt to those things. It's not like, when you are working in a completely simplified or unregulated manner to all of a sudden start having so many compliances. We understand for larger corporates can adapt it much faster. SMEs do face a challenge in adapting it. But with time, I think the adaptation and acceptance is coming through. And like any other developed country of the world, in a few years' time, we'll have a very stable tech space. I would still say it's evolving. A lot of new things are coming up. So we as consultants have to be on the toes. The businesses have to be on the toes, keep abreast with whatsoever is changing.
Correct.
But ultimately, I think we are moving in the right direction. And once the acceptance comes in and once the residents and the businesses see that this money is actually being utilized for their welfare in terms of infrastructure or enhancing the safety and other things, the voluntary habit of paying taxes automatically builds in. That's how any developed country the people are willing to pay taxes rather than trying to evade taxes. So that's the kind of culture we expect UAE
to
will build by showing the benefit which they're offering against the payment of those taxes.
So that's nice that what you just said, Mayank. While you're also on the tax advisory board of FDA for a lot of tax, accounting softwares. So what is that role like?
Basically, I'm more like a tax knowledge partner to some of the FDA-approved accounting softwares, where when they have to basically develop the software which will be compliant with the VAT law or the corporate tax law or compliant with e-invoicing. Me being a tax expert, I provide my inputs to them on what their software, the features it should contain basically. So the development is done by the technical teams, but they always need on-ground input from the industry experts. In ensuring that what they develop, it is not just compliant on the face of it, but in essence it complies with that. It has all the features which the business users who are going to use them will have. So my role is to provide inputs to those FDA-approved softwares while they are developing those before they submit it for approval of the tax authorities. So this way also we ensure that software is a very, very important part. Like with the number of transactions businesses could have, there's no way they can manually maintain all their records and everything. So if they are having a software which is approved by FDA, which is fully compliant, it makes the life easier for the businesses. So I, as a knowledge partner for these softwares, I try to contribute my part in passing my knowledge on to them by, ensuring that, they build in something which is actually fully compliant with the law. That's my role.
So you're playing an advisor, you're playing a role of a consultant also, as well as you've already played a role as leading a tax authority in terms of like different areas, like, in your previous expertise. How do you feel as of date, and where do you see 5 to 10 years down the line, the profession going?
So I've worked with the big four firms, as I said, majority of my career, with PwC, EY, then also worked with His Highness Office, worked as a partner with another top 10 global firm called Crow. Then what I found while working with these firms, that there was a wide gap, like the big fours and other firms, their pricing was too high. A lot of businesses which are large enough also, or SMEs for that matter, the next level was more like between tier 1, then the next was tier 3, tier 4. So there
Okay.
was a lack of tier 2 firms who can give you a quality advice at affordable price.
Correct, yeah.
So using my experience, I thought I would rather be a part of a boutique firm which focuses on giving affordable services to businesses, of the same quality and level of a tier 1 or big 4 firms,
Yeah,
but at a fraction of a price or similar price what a tier 3 firm will charge.
correct.
So that is where we went into the market with the
Market.
proposition. That
Yeah.
was my whole thing, to bridge that gap, to go to offer to the businesses. We offer you quality of services of big 4 firm at a fraction of the price,
Okay.
because I believe compliance, the cost of compliance is minimal as compared to the cost of penalties.
Definitely.
So the idea of putting the most of businesses used to avoid doing or taking advice because it was too expensive. Now, when you offer them a accurate and a correct advice at the beginning itself,
Correct.
it ensures that they don't ever get into the wrong side of the tax law. And that was the objective which I saw, where my current company, which is I'm the managing director, Max Growth Consulting.
Correct.
That was the objective, and this is the motto we run with. And I see 5 or 10 years down the line, the profession, with the advent of technology, with the advent of artificial intelligence, we as professionals have to focus more and more on value added services.
Yeah.
A lot of the monotonous tasks, like the basic data entries and compilation, will be done by the AI tools. But that does not mean we as chartered accountants or tax professionals will become irrelevant.
Correct.
We just need to ensure that we use or embrace the technology.
Correct.
And upskill our skills that where our value addition. Like the technology will give you data, but you still have to analyze and interpret it. Right?
Yeah.
This is what we do currently. What our team is doing, they're manually filtering out, sorting out
Correct,
the data.
yeah.
That is what will be done in 5 to 10 years down the line in the profession. A lot of those things will be done by technological tools.
Yeah.
But the role of analyzing it correctly, interpreting it correctly, and giving the right advice to clients, that is what will still remain.
Correct.
So important advice to the ones who are the young budding professionals and all, they should keep on upgrading their skills and that's what I have lived my profession.
Yeah.
There's
With
never an
4
end to
degrees
learning.
to your name.
Not just the degrees. I
Yeah.
said it's about the learning and
Exactly,
upskilling
yeah.
yourself, because the things change quite fast.
Correct.
So you should keep on upskilling yourself, and that's what I love doing, right? Because if we are not upskilled, we'll be out of the market quite soon.
Correct.
So if we have to be in the profession, and that's why it's called a profession, not a
Yeah.
business, right? So
Yeah.
we have to keep on learning, whether it's a medicine, whether it's any other profession. New things keep on coming. If you don't upskill yourself, you will become outdated. And
Correct.
in our profession, it's not any different. Technology is a future. We have to embrace technology, but we have to upskill ourselves. Our skills in analyzing, interpreting, advising, this is where our role to the business as their advisors will always remain. And that's what our focus, and that's the way I look at the profession going forward.
That's nice. So, as a consultant, can you give me your top 3 tips which companies should keep in mind when they're starting off their business, and especially in terms of like tax advisory?
So I would say the first part, as I mentioned, the foundation of the business has to be built in the right way. Because
Correct.
if you have a strong foundation,
Yeah.
you can build a strong building, like in it. So when you're setting up a business, I would just say, yes, you understand that the costs are, a concern, but there are still ways you can manage to set up a strong foundation with minimal cost. We advise a lot of startups. We do a kind of a very nominal fee retainer contract with them, where we take care of their accounts, their tax, their business strategy. We become their mentors in a way.
Correct. Yeah.
But we ensure that their business are structured in the right ways, because that is a step one, that your fundamentals of the business, the foundation, as far as the compliance with the laws are concerned, compliance with the taxes are concerned, always be on the right side of the law. The moment you have a problem, if you start growing, there will be, challenges in that. Second part is, when you are building a business, you have to have a lot of financial discipline.
Correct.
A lot of entrepreneurs have a lot of idea. I mean, and there is a trend in the market of building unicorn too fast, where you are burning money and raising capital from
Venture
investors.
capitals,
And
yeah.
we have seen a lot of cases, biggest of the names like Byju's, which have fallen apart from the peak after raising so much,
Correct.
because they did not have the right financial discipline while running the business, or they went overboard in their spending. So
Correct.
the second advice for the businesses is, when you always look at the bottom line of a business is profitability, right? So when you're growing, the growth should come with profitability. Just don't get, I want these many numbers and just keep on burning money, because that will never be a sustainable model in the longer run. So growth with profitability, with financial discipline as is the second part. And the third part for a business owner is, a business owner cannot have all the required skill sets internally, right? As a small and growing business, they can't afford to have top executives. But there is also a growing concept of shared services. Like, you can have a shared CFO, which is a part-time CFO, part-time CEO. If you can't afford a good, executive, if you're a business owner, you might have a good idea, but you may not be having all the skill sets to grow the business. So even if you can't afford a full-time, man, please start using professionals as your part-time CEO, CFO, because bringing those right people around the team, it's very important. I think any business is built with people.
Correct.
And if you build a right combination of people, whether you can afford them on a full-time basis or a part-time basis, you will always, tend to have more chance of success. So these will be my 3 major tips to any business, which is a startup business or SME. If they follow these 3 rules, if they have the right business idea, they will more often than succeed. Because many times you've seen some of the best ideas don't convert into best businesses.
Correct, yeah.
So I think how you convert a best idea into a best business is, I think these are 3 basic tips I could give.
Thank you so much, Mayank, for that. And it was lovely talking to you. We've had a great time chatting with you. And thank you so much for coming on the show too. And especially giving us for those 3 important tips. Because everyone can always learn from that.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.